The UFC GOAT conversation is one of the most controversial in the sport. Everyone has their favorites, their own idea of what makes a GOAT, and who they think isn't number one. So let's break down every potential GOAT and the main reason why fans think they're not the greatest of all time. On paper, Jon Jones is MMA's GOAT for many people, the boss included.
He's the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, and he's the GOAT. And you all know this. Numbers don't lie.
Does he have pictures of you?
I saw that on the internet too. Are you guys that stupid? You can't be that stupid to think that Jon Jones is not the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world and the GOAT.
Outside of the controversial DQ, he's never lost a fight. But it's not just about being unbeaten that makes Jon Jones what he is. It's the longevity and his resume. He's been in the UFC since 2008, and in that time, the list of people he's beaten is truly wild. There's 9 UFC champions he's taken out.
Jon Jones is facing Gustafsson, Glover Teixeira. He was facing Daniel Cormier. He was facing the elite of the elite, and he never fucking lost, even when he was doing coke and he wasn't even training.
Right.
That's how goddamn good Jon Jones is.
Right.
He's the youngest UFC champion in history, has the most title defenses in history, and is truly one of a kind. In 2023, Jon became a 2-division champion, going up to heavyweight, winning the belt, and defending it against the most successful fighter in the division, Stipe Miocic.
This guy's fight IQ is off the charts. And, you know, everybody gonna admit now that he's the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. And let me tell you what, this thing had upset written all over it too. I mean, Stipe, all the talk about Jon Jones, Stipe seemed pissed, focused, and, you know, he came here to win. He looked good, he was physically in great shape. The list goes on, and Jon literally picked him apart.
Jon Jones has had 30 fights, almost all of them against elite competition, and he has never been beaten. That alone says it all. But while that's a pretty bulletproof argument for Jones being the GOAT, the naysayers have a lot of reasons to discredit him. The most glaring one is Jon's multiple drug test failures.
And we have breaking news here on SportsCenter. Jon Jones, who just won the light heavyweight title belt from Daniel Cormier at UFC 214, potentially has that title belt in jeopardy. However, UFC president Dana White has told our MMA reporter Brett Okamoto that Jones failed a drug test at UFC 214.
Now, we're not here to label Jon Jones a drug cheat or not, but the man has 4 different controversies and failed tests, and while they can be explained, whether it was cocaine, proven tainted supplements, or a pulsing effect from that same supplement, 4 different situations are hard to look past. So those who discredit Jones as the GOAT can simply point to 4 drug tests and say, can the greatest of all time really have 4 asterisks next to his name like this?
Everybody talk about the drugs, right? The cocaine that he was doing, but also his levels were super low, which are very suspicious. Why? Then when we were supposed to fight at UFC 200, he tests positive. They pull him out of the fight. Why? Then we fight at UFC 214. He tests positive after the fight. Why?
All 3 times?
Against me.
All 3 times.
All those times. Why?
Then, if you wanted to get nitpicky on Jones's career, a lot of the all-time greats he defeated were past their primes when they fought. Stipe in his 40s, DC in his late 30s, and many of the former light heavyweight champs he beat were in their mid-30s too. Then there's the Thiago Santos and Dominic Reyes fights, 2 back-to-back decisions that many felt he lost, especially the Reyes one.
Joe Silva, the former matchmaker here, had it a draw. Kevin Iole hit me up. He had Jones 3-2. Going into the last round, I had Dominic Reyes 3-1 going into the last round. My kids are terrorizing me that the fix is in and how can this happen, Dad? Reyes won that fight. And the list goes on and on of people that are reaching out to me.
Santos blew his knee out early, yet Jon couldn't do anything to him, while Reyes had him running away numerous times in that fight. And then the final nail, those who don't consider Jones the GOAT point to the fact he arguably ducked both Francis Ngannou and Tom Aspinall.
This is forever why GSP will be my GOAT. And part of when I say GOAT, I say the guy who represented the company, a guy who represented the sport, and did the jobs in the cage. GSP had 2 opportunities to hold up a weight class. 2 opportunities. and he did the right thing.
In very similar situations, Jones wanted heavyweight fights, yet for whatever reason waited for Ngannou to leave the UFC and rejected a fight with Aspinall.
If I'm Jon Jones and I'm home watching this fight, I start moving to 85.
You think that's a fight that you'd like to put together next? I mean, I know we don't matchmake, but that sure does seem exciting.
Listen, I could sit here all day and tell you, what show me the money mean. I tell you guys this all the time. If you can say you want to fight somebody, but do you really want to?
Instead, he took on Cyril Gane, a stylistic matchup that favored him and defended against Stipe in his 40s. During that time, he held up the entire division, something dishonorable that many of the other fighters in this video didn't do. And if you're someone who considers how a champion carries themselves outside of the sport as a factor in them being the GOAT, well, Jon Jones' criminal history speaks for itself. But unlike Jones, someone who stayed out of the limelight during his UFC career, which definitely hurts his case as the GOAT, is Demetrious Johnson. In many people's eyes, DJ is the most skilled fighter the sport has ever seen.
Mighty Mouse, to me, if you want to look at like a technical expression of the greatness of martial arts, he's as good as anybody's ever done it.
During his prime, a lot of UFC fans found his fights boring simply because it was so obvious he would win. That's how good he was. Whether it was jiu-jitsu, wrestling, striking, or any other facet of MMA, Demetrious Johnson was absolutely levels above anyone faced.
When you look at it, you look at Demetrious Johnson, is probably right now the best
Ever.
The best ever, yeah, I agree. Man, when I talk about confidence and skills, man, what is the better guy than this? What better guy than this?
Yeah.
He has the most consecutive title defenses in UFC history, and outside of that razor-close decision to Henry Cejudo, he never lost at flyweight in the UFC. Not only did he not lose, he utterly dominated.
Right, but who's the GOAT? Who's the greatest of all time? Is it you or Demetrious?
I think Demetrious.
Demetrious?
Yeah,
well, that's
absolutely.
huge. That's humble, very humble of you.
Thank you,
All
bye
right,
guys.
you're a legend.
KOing Joseph Benavidez, finishing Cejudo with ease in their first fight, and of course that flying armbar against Ray Borg that is arguably the greatest submission in UFC history. But in some twisted way, Demetrius' skill was actually a curse, and the reason many people don't consider him the best of all time. He was so far ahead of his competition that the fights often weren't compelling. Fans wanted wars, rivalries, close back and forth contests, but with a DJ fight, the question was simply how he would go about winning. The UFC literally put on a whole series of The Ultimate Fighter with 16 regional flyweight champions to try and find a strong contender for Demetrius. In truth, the competition just wasn't there.
Demetrious Johnson is number 2 in my opinion, absolutely. The only reason I wouldn't give it to Demetrius, and I think the world of Demetrius. I think the world of him, okay? I can't say enough good things about him. He didn't have the hornet's nest, the challengers that George had. He just didn't have those legendary guys who went on a win streak. They were unstoppable, and then were stopped by the champ.
But while DJ's record and consistency was one of the very best, his UFC career was far from perfect. Before the UFC even had a flyweight division, Demetrius was forced to fight at 135 pounds. While he did almost become champion, Dominic Cruz utterly dominated him when they met. And it was the same story earlier in his career in the WEC, where Brad Pickett, more of a gatekeeper type fighter, also destroyed DJ. Perhaps the biggest reason people can point to DJ not being the GOAT is the fact that he got knocked out outside of the UFC. Although he would get his revenge with the same flying knee, can the greatest of all time really get knocked out cold in a smaller organization? Then there's also the loss to Cejudo and the fact that he didn't stay for the trilogy. But a major point is the fact that DJ was never a star. If you're the greatest of all time, surely the fans would be desperate to watch you fight. But for Demetrius, that was never really the case. He never really had that big fight feel throughout his career. But the same can be said for this next potential GOAT, Khabib Nurmagomedov. For Khabib's case, to be the greatest of all time, there's one clear reason that's hard to argue against: being undefeated. Every other fighter on this list has a blemish on their record in some way, but for Khabib, it's a clean 29 wins and 0 losses. In 13 UFC fights, he practically never lost a single round and almost never came close to losing, and was as dominant as anyone.
Right now, would you see flawless victory after flawless victory? You could maybe make the argument that Khabib lost 2 rounds his entire career. Maybe the second round against Justin, or
First round against Justin, you could argue.
maybe first round rather against Justin, and maybe the third round with Conor.
That's right.
That's it.
Right.
And either one of those didn't get cut, didn't get dropped, didn't get hurt.
Right. To never get cut and to never get dropped, I don't think folks understand what that means.
And he was the trailblazer for what is the most dominant style of fighting in history, the Dagestani wrestler. Even landing a couple of strikes on Khabib felt like a victory.
Especially when he's got his opponent against the fence, that's his area of expertise where to me, he's the best that ever did it in terms of that fighting style, that particular expertise that he has.
The way he beat guys like Michael Johnson and Edson Barboza was so brutal that fans genuinely felt sorry for them. Even against Gaethje, Khabib revealed he chose the less damaging submission to beat him with.
And then sits back and takes mercy upon him, as we learned later from Daniel Cormier. Rather than armbar him in front of his mom's, I'm just going to triangle you because that's the merciful. This guy is out here taking fucking pity on his opponents. And he's doing back takes like that. Jon Jones to me is the most accomplished fighter we've ever seen. Like the things accumulate over time. No one is as flawless as Khabib Nurmagomedov.
And after winning the belt, Khabib finished 3 of the lightweight all-time greats with relative ease, submitting Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, and Justin Gaethje back-to-back. But that was curtains for Khabib's career. At 32 years old, at the peak of his powers, the most dominant champion in UFC history walked away from the sport for good.
It was my last fight, and no way I'm gonna come here without my father. It was first time when, after what happened with my father, when UFC called me about Justin, I talked with my father, my mother, 3 days. She don't want I go fight without father, but I promise her it's gonna be my last fight. And if I give my word, I have to follow this.
Unlike a lot of other fighters who retire, return, retire, and return, Khabib is gone for good. And that's a big blemish on him being the GOAT.
It's so hard. Obviously, he's talented enough. Who knows what he could accomplish, but he retired too early.
Because he just had so much left to offer, yet walked away from the sport with just 3 little defenses. The fans believed Khabib wanted to keep his undefeated record intact. They claimed he relied too heavily on wrestling and fought safely, and also walked away before Father Time could catch him up. Because when you really look through his record with a real critical eye, there's only 4, maybe 5 truly elite victories. Throughout his career, Khabib had serious problems with both injuries and weight cuts. It led to him pulling out numerous times in his career, most notably on 2 separate occasions against Tony Ferguson. At the time, Khabib versus Tony would have been the biggest, most exciting matchup in the entire sport. 2 lightweights in history making win streaks, but the fight was cursed, cancelled on 4 different occasions. And when you look at Khabib's career, the fact he never fought the second best light heavyweight during his era is a massive question mark on his legacy. He might have dominated Ferguson like he did everyone else, but we'll never know. So after never beating the top contender, just 3 title defenses and a safe fighting style, MMA fans have a good argument to counter Khabib being the GOAT.
I've tried to convince Khabib to come out of retirement. We'll see what happens over the next couple of years, but I feel like he left in his prime. I mean, look at what he did to Justin Gaethje right before he retired.
And it's that safety-first approach that people use to also dismiss someone who is considered the GOAT without question at one point in their career, Georges St. Pierre.
Georges St. Pierre he's a special guy. He really is a special athlete.
People were really underestimating how great Georges St. Pierre was.
Yeah.
He's a guy who beat every person that was ever put in front of him. The losses that he had avenged so beautifully. Georges St. Pierre is a monster.
In his peak, GSP was the most dominant fighter in UFC history. 9 title defenses, the second most wins in title fight history, and second most wins in welterweight history. He carried himself with true class, was a true martial artist, and was a real ambassador of the sport.
And the casuals will say Conor. Okay, Conor hasn't defended the title. Next. Fedor. Had too many losses. Next.
Anderson.
Too many losses, and you know what happened. The testing didn't go well. Next.
John.
Testing. Next. Come on, guys. Come on. Who's the next? Who's there? Guys, there's nobody else. There's nobody else. There's nobody else. And I'm not just saying that because I trained him. I'm not trying to say that. Put me aside. The guy is the greatest martial artist of all time.
St. Pierre only lost twice, and both of those have really strong caveats. Defeat to the great Matt Hughes in just his 3rd UFC fight ever, and he got caught by Matt Serra. A simple zig when he should have zagged, and both guys he got dominant revenge on.
Georges St. Pierre proved to be better than all those who came before him. That's what defeating Matt Hughes represented. He showed that he could beat yesteryear. He then beat everybody of his day to the point that he had to go through them a second time. Could not have been clearer. It is beyond dispute by a reasonable person that George was not the best in the world during his time.
He retired as champion and even came back 4 years later up a division to win a second title. If he wasn't already the GOAT, becoming a double champ, proving ring rust isn't real, was a real cherry on top. But if you're someone who doesn't think GSP is the GOAT, you have a lot of ammunition. After all, he was finished twice inside the octagon, fought extremely safe with his wrestling, and many people think he only walked away because the sport was catching up to him. His final fight at 170 against Johnny Hendricks has gone down as one of the clearest robberies in the sport's history.
I'm blown away that George St. Pierre won that fight. And listen, I'm a promoter. He's the biggest pay-per-view star on the planet for me, and I still don't think he won that fight. I want what's fair, and that wasn't fair. I think the Nevada State Athletic Commission is atrocious. I think the governor needs to step in immediately before these guys destroy this sport like they did boxing.
GSP's 7 final fights at welterweight all went to a decision, and he very much transitioned to a wrestling-heavy, ground-and-pound style to win. While George was unstoppable though, the UFC and the fans wanted him to move up and challenge Anderson Silva in what would have been the biggest fight in the sport's history. But GSP had no interest whatsoever.
Probably interviewed you 20 times. I think every time I asked you about Anderson Silva, still want a piece of him? Still want to fight him?
It could happen. It depends on the condition. You know that fight is about timing. You know what I mean? Sometimes some guys, like I said, the stock are high. Some guys are lower. You want the guy that the stock is the highest. You know, it fluctuates. You know, I don't think his stock right now it's very high. You know, he's a legend. He's stuff he have done in the past,
right,
but he's not the same as he was back in the day.
Whether he was committed to defending his belt, had no aspirations to move up, or didn't fancy his chances against Silva, the fact he didn't test himself at the time was disappointing. Had he gone up to 185, dominated the other potential GOAT, and then retired, it'd be hard to deny GSP as the very best. But he played it safe, as he often did, and it definitely hurts his case as a result. Someone who never plays it safe, however, is unarguably the female GOAT, but maybe the all-time GOAT, Amanda Nunes.
She's setting the bar so high, it's going to be very hard for another athlete to accomplish what she has. Let's not forget, all anybody talked about was how scary and how dangerous Cyborg was.
Yeah.
And she absolutely destroyed Cyborg.
Yeah.
Destroyed her. Holly Holm, who has been, one of the best of all time too, in boxing and in MMA, and how easily she beat her.
Even to this day, Nunes is the only fighter ever to not only hold 2 belts at once, but actively defend them. She bounced between bantamweight and featherweight with numerous defenses in each division.
How are you able to do that? Go up and down between weights and still be so successful?
Yeah, it's pretty hard, but I want to do this so bad, you see? And I put in my mind I have to do. You know, I have to defend the 145. I cannot leave the 135 just like the girls waiting for me. I have to kill myself if I have to, but I'm gonna make it this way.
In fact, she has the tied most title fight victories of any woman in UFC history. In her prime, she was unstoppable, beating Valentina Shevchenko twice, destroying Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm, and of course, the craziest fight in women's MMA history, knocking out Chris Cyborg. It left her with a 12-fight UFC win streak, most of them by finish, and undoubtedly the greatest female fighter ever. And when Amanda retired, she did it still as a double champ. But for those that doubt her, there's a lot of things to point out. She had 3 defeats earlier in her career, including a TKO to Kat Zingano in the UFC.
She had a lot of talent. She was athletic. She was strong. She built a certain way, but she had no control over the fight. She was emotional. She would, blitz when you knew that girl's not that hurt. And she would just throw out all this energy, and then she had to back off. She was trying to grab. She didn't know how to fight.
And of course, the shock loss to Juliana Pena. Then, Amanda's big reason for being the GOAT is her activity as double champ. And of course, the Cyborg victory was incredible, but outside of that, the competition at 145 pounds was extremely questionable. There was never really a featherweight division. Instead, the UFC would just bring fighters in as lambs to the slaughter for Nunes. But with Nunes, the story isn't over yet. She's still targeting a fight with Kayla Harrison. And if she wins that, it's a huge boost for her being the GOAT. If she loses, well, it's the nail in the coffin, and clearly she hung on too long in her, much like this next potential GOAT did, Anderson Silva. The accolades next to Anderson's name are pretty wild. Let me go through some. Longest UFC title reign of all time, most knockouts and finishes in UFC title fights, and longest win streak in middleweight history. From 2006 to 2013, Anderson Silva was the man.
Like Anderson Silva when he was like 30 to 32.
Woo! He's going. I remember that. Longest reign.
You would watch him and just like put your hands to your head and go, geez.
17 straight wins, 15 finishes, and some of the most iconic moments in UFC history. KOing Forrest Griffin like he's in the Matrix, front-kicking Vitor Belfort, and in the 5th round comeback versus Chael Sonnen. These are the moments that will go down in MMA folklore. Anderson was so far ahead of the competition in a way that probably won't ever happen again.
Anderson in his debut, that was the one. I was like, bet the house.
Wait, when he fought Chris Lieben?
Yes.
Oh my
I was
God.
like, bet the house on the Brazilian. Bet the house.
So good.
This was after Anderson became Anderson in Cage Warriors. Remember?
Yep.
Was it Cage Warriors?
Cage Warriors.
Yeah. So when he went over there and he fought Lee Murray, and then he fought Tony Strickland, he hit him with that crazy upward elbow
Yes, that
his
thing.
coach told him to stop practicing.
He'd been
so he'd make his
practicing, yeah.
wife hold a pillow when he get home, and he was practicing that, standing there and stepping forward, and he wanted to knock him out with that. Like he had this in his head that that's what he was going to do.
Weird.
He made former champions and Hall of Famers look like total amateurs who had never thrown a punch in their life. But for all the victories, highlight reel finishes, and star power, there's a lot to poke holes at in Anderson's career if you wanted. First of all, he lost a lot of fights, 11 in total. A record that's 34 wins to 11 losses doesn't scream the greatest of all time. Sure, the majority of them came at the end of a career where he was well past his prime. But either way, that's a lot of defeats. When it comes to defining the absolute GOAT, you have to look at a fighter's whole career. So the fact Anderson hung around a bit too long and lost 7 of his last 9 definitely hurts his legacy. Then there's question marks about the level of competition at the time. The fact he was dominated by Chael Sonnen for 4 straight rounds, and even that incredibly boring fight with Damian Maia.
Even more baffling is that he feels that he doesn't owe the fans an apology. Yet I'm apologizing. I didn't go in and fight like a jackass for 5 rounds. I didn't do what he did tonight, but I'm embarrassed, and I feel like I should apologize to the fans, and I feel like I owe the fans one.
And if you wanted to dig deeper, he failed drug tests on 2 separate occasions. He claimed it was a tainted Viagra pill, but the commission denied it and banned Anderson for an entire year.
Are you at all worried that he might be using steroids again?
No, we're being tested randomly by USADA. I've been tested twice this camp. He's been tested. We're all good. But that said, he's going to be at a shortcoming, pardon the pun, because he was using his entire career. I've never used it in my life. He's going to pay the price. He will still be a stiff test, but he will not erect his career on my behalf.
So with double-digit losses, multiple drug test failures, and defeats to fighters outside of the UFC, people who want to doubt Anderson as the GOAT have a lot of facts to bring to the table. But someone who it's extremely hard to argue against nowadays is actually Islam Makhachev. When we discuss GOATs, it's usually the iconic greats from the past who have long retired. But for Makhachev, he has everything needed to be in this conversation.
He is now just the 2nd fighter in UFC history to win 16 fights in a row. He ties a record that was set by Anderson Silva many moons ago, a record that I think a lot of people thought no one would ever match.
A UFC double champ, the tied longest win streak in UFC history, and one of the most dominant champions the sport has ever seen. He's one of the rare fighters who can quite literally do it all. Islam's taken out Volkanovski on the feet, submitted Charles Oliveira, and outstruck Dustin Poirier on the feet before tapping him out too. And against lesser opposition, guys like Dan Hooker, King Green, and Renato Moicano, Makhachev made easy work of them and finished all 3 in the first round.
Dan Hooker mauled him.
His strength of schedule isn't great.
Bobby Green was like, "What the fuck?" Right. Bobby Green said that's what
that
it's
was
like
short
when they
notice.
Bobby Green said that's what it's like when they give you steroids from the time you're 10.
Then he moved up to welterweight and handled the champion who was on an 18-fight win streak with ease.
And in his first fight at 170 pounds, he not only beats Jack Della Maddalena, he thoroughly dominates Jack Della Maddalena. It was never really close. It was 50-45. It was a very easy 50-45 to score. I don't think anyone gave Jack Della, even his biggest fan, I don't think would give him a single round in that fight.
But as always, there's flaws to be picked at. The biggest is the fact that he was knocked out cold in his second UFC fight. He got caught, no doubt, but still, he was unconscious inside the octagon. And then the other would be the type of opponents he's faced. In the run-up to the lightweight title, his fighters were Dan Hooker and King Green. Not quite top 5 caliber opponents. Then, all 4 of his lightweight defenses were against former or current featherweights. Volkanovski twice, Poirier towards the end of his career, and Moicano, who's gifted the title shot. Even though he may end up holding the longest winning record in UFC history, it does feel like Islam still has a little work to do. If he ends up beating Topuria and holding the belt against all the up-and-comers at 170, then there's no question. For now though, it's a touch early. But some people make the case that Alexander Volkanovski, Islam's toughest opponent, is actually the GOAT himself. For Volk, there's no denying he's the featherweight GOAT. He once had a 22-fight win streak, has a trio of wins against Max Holloway, and beat Jose Aldo, 2 of the other very best 145-pounders.
Alex Volkanovski is, in many people's eyes now, and mine, the greatest featherweight champion of all time. And as a result, the greatest featherweight fighter of all time. For the longest time, it was Jose Aldo. And then Max Holloway had a say. And then came along a guy named Alex Volkanovski.
And despite the fact that he failed to become a double champ, you have to remember, he had one of the toughest champions in history to beat in Makhachev. Usually when fighters go up a division to win a second belt, the champion is often a decent stylistic matchup for them, and that first time, he took Islam Makhachev to war. In some people's eyes, he actually won the fight.
Volkanovski is a fucking savage.
I stand corrected. Volkanovski is the GOAT.
No, you bet against him. Oh my God.
Let me back out.
Oh my God. Look at this.
Bro,
35 seconds ago. All he has to do is not get submitted and stay on top, and he's the motherfucking double champ.
You're damn right.
Holy shit.
How you can't say he's the GOAT?
He's the GOAT.
He's the GOAT.
He's the GOAT now.
Perhaps the most impressive thing about Volk is the fact that he suffered back-to-back knockout losses in his mid to late 30s, and the world wrote him off.
He takes this fight on short notice, gets knocked out for the first time in his career, and you think, wow, there's going to come a time where this man will regret taking this fight because it changed everything. It changed the trajectory of his career. He will not be the legend that he was supposed to be.
But despite this, he came back, recaptured the belt against a dangerous Diego Lopez, and even defended it. And he looks as good as ever, in all honesty.
That Australia's 37-year-old champion could still get the job done against a young challenger who in the first fight against him fought a very competitive fight down the stretch, hurting Volkanovski a couple times as the fight got long. Tonight, or this afternoon, because right now it's only 4 p.m. in Australia, Alexander Volkanovski fought even better, guys. He actually went out there against Diego Lopez and beat him better than he did the first time.
But when it comes to Volk being the out-and-out GOAT, I don't think the fans truly believe it. He did lose twice to Makhachev and got utterly destroyed by Topuria. And had it not been for Ilya deciding to move up to lightweight, there's a fair chance Volk would have never won the title back. It definitely feels like, as always with MMA, the new generation of elite fighters like Topuria are just a step ahead.
I want to see him turn around to fight Ilya in a rematch. Are you out of your f***ing mind? You want to see him fight a rematch? Are you kidding me? After he just got laid the fuck out? Like, did you not see him piecing up Topuria and it all meant nothing? Sure, maybe he gets a takedown next time, but, you know, have you ever seen Volk submit anyone? Maybe he would beat up Topuria well and tire him out a little bit more, but that guy still hardly expends any energy. It's like, how the f*** are you gonna beat him?
He's no doubt a Hall of Famer, no doubt the greatest featherweight to ever do it, but the true GOAT? Probably not. Thanks for watching. We recently made a deep dive video into why the UFC is trying to silence Ariel Helwani. If you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy that one too. You can check it out here.